Gracias por tu participación y sigue conectado en Crechi. Ya viene.
Including South Africa, UK, Germany, and the US. He has more than 20 years of experience in the industry, and he is father of 2 boys and lives currently in Hamburg, Germany. Shaun, we spoke yesterday. It's a real honor to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us today in this meeting where we have a lot of people of the industry ready to have a little conversation and hear what you have to say. And listen, with no more further words, I will just pass on the microphone to you. Shaun, have an excellent presentation, and thanks once again for being here.
Thank you very much, Christian, for the warm words, and hopefully you can hear me okay. You've already introduced me, so I won't introduce myself. The accent that you hear is actually South African, living in Germany, so you can call me a global citizen. The topic of today is really about creativity. As you've heard, I represent advertising research at Ipsos, and our goal really is looking at the combination of art, science, and knowledge to help advertisers or our clients achieve their business goals. And these 3 things are important, but the first one, understanding the art part of it and having empathy for that is a very big part of this whole thing. And obviously we bring the science and knowledge. Let me start off with the first point that I want to make, is that creativity definitely matters. And it matters in the field of advertising research, and if you want to be successful in today's world. So if you, I know you're all in Chile, but imagine you're in Paris, and if you were in Paris and were around in 1991, you would probably know what brand this advert was for if you saw these visuals on the screen. If I went one step further and actually played the music of this ad, and again, if you were around in 1991, you would remember this ad as well. We'll come back to this ad a little bit later, but it was an iconic step for the brand at that time, and an excellent representation of creativity. So excellent one. The other thing I wanted to start off with is 2 questions. I was asked at an audience in New York last year at the Advertising Week in a session on the same topic. And the first question we were asked in the audience is, how many people remember any advertising that happened in the last 2 days? Not many hands came up. And then they asked us again, okay, how many people actually remembered any digital advertising that happened in the last 24 hours? And that's an interesting question. We all work in the industry, but if you ask a general audience that question, it's quite hard for us to remember that advertising. And why am I telling you that? Maybe it's an obvious thing, but what we found at Ipsos and across the world in the industries we work in is that great creative is critically important in a world of distraction, and getting to brand attention is a primary condition for any advertising to work. So getting to great creative is important because we know that people are more connected, less focused, and of course brands are trying to get into people's mental networks and draw up associations of that advertising for them. So that's the first point of why creativity is very important. And Ipsos, what we really talk about is great creative has the ability to spark memories and quite simply to influence choice, whether that's short-term or long-term. And when we talk about memories, we talk about the mental networks and associations and experiences that brands are able to penetrate in people's minds. Those are the past experiences. We may have past experiences. Advertising tries to penetrate our minds through present activities to influence future choice, those outcomes that brands want consumers to have. And so we talk about this, about capturing and retaining attention and then influencing brand desire, whether that's short or long term. So that's how we look at it. And this is critically important to understand because advertising is really complex. So at the beginning of this year, I'm sure you're all familiar with Fernando Machado, who's a Brazilian who lives in Miami and represents the company Burger King. Fantastic streak of great advertising, and as a challenger brand to McDonald's, have done a fabulous job of really upsetting the #1 brand with their great creative that they've produced over the last years. There's one ad that caught our attention beginning of this year that Burger King produced, and I'll play the ad and then talk about it a little bit more. So let's have a look at this.
What a difference a day made. 24 little hours.
So we had a problem with the video, but okay, I don't know why it's not playing now. But anyway, what happens is I'll just describe it to you. You can definitely look it up, and I'm sure some of you have seen the moldy burger. If you haven't, look it up in YouTube. It's called the Moldy Whopper, and what it does is basically shows a Whopper in 34 days completely becoming rotten. At the end of the advert, what they're saying is that they don't use preservatives or any artificial ingredients in black and white on the screen. Now, I'm sure you'll all agree that that is an example of a very memorable ad. It's very single-minded. It's focused on the product, the hero product from Burger King, which is the Whopper. But it's showing something very, very interesting, which is the rotting food, and trying to get that message into people's heads that actually our competitor has food that lasts a lot longer because it's full of artificial ingredients, but ours doesn't. The thing with that is it's very, very memorable, and this is just a screen grab from the results that we got from some research we did on this ad and with our method called Creative Spark. And you can see from the pink line, which is the happy facial coding results, so we measure these emotions implicitly, and the green line, which is disgust, that as this burger is rotting, the level of disgust increases significantly. So what it does is this ad is really, really good at catching people's attention, but it is also not so good because it puts people off because the burger is obviously rotting. So we saw very, very different results. I'm sure Fernando would say something different, but we think that was a little bit risky, but still very, very creative. So what I can leave you say as well is that creative effectiveness is definitely critical to growing any brand. If we get it right, a spark of magic happens. And you can see from this reel, from some of the advertising that's playing in the background, the Heineken ad with James Brown, or Loretta from Google, those are examples of really, really strong creative that we remember because those ads were very strong. Or the last one was an ad for Gerber, which won a gold Effie. And we know that strong creative really drives business growth, and there's plenty of research that proves this, whether we look at the IPA, so the Independent Publishers of Advertising in the UK, their research, or the Cannes Creativity Festival. We always see either impacts on market share gains or stock market performance from those advertisers that have had creatively awarded campaigns. But also we see in our own database at Ipsos that that advertising that performs on average better than the others has a 20% uplift on sales like for like. So we can see that strong creative really drives business results. And what we see in the industry is that too often advertisers follow category conventions, believing it would work. So we can see from the video on the screen here a typical example of an automotive ad that shows the car driving through the path, or the woman in a toothpaste ad showing white teeth. So very typical ads that are what we call safe paths to communicating in a category. And actually we see that those safe paths are not really working in our database, and that they have a lower potential to be remembered. So what that translates in the data itself is that advertising that conforms to category conventions, like I just showed you, suffers from what we call cognitive immunity, meaning that people simply forget those ads. They don't remember advertising that's not unique and is very category definition. So we see actually that advertising that's more unique stands out, generally performs much better in our copy testing database. So indeed, great advertising needs to stand out from the crowd. Great advertising needs to earn the right, or great creative needs to earn the right to capture attention, as I said earlier, and to ignite new and existing memories, to spark new choices and create brand value. And these two examples I mentioned already, the one earlier, and I'm going to show you that ad so you can get a feeling for what Perrier did in 1991 in France with this ad.
De l'eau, de l'air, la vie.
So you can see from that ad, it was actually launched in 1991. As I said, very iconic, the woman fighting against the lion in exaggeration, but it did wonders for Perrier at the time. And they relaunched another version of this ad just a year and a half ago, which also won a Cannes Lion and has been very successful for Perrier as well.
Tout l'extraordinaire de Perrier avec de plus petites bulles.
So the original one was a really bold statement for the advertiser at the time, but we can see in the second ad, which was launched many years ago, they tried to use the same iconography and that worked just as well. So really good examples of advertising that stands out. Moving on, and a $1 million question we get a lot of the time is, does creativity still matter now in the COVID times? What we can say, and we can say that going dark is not the answer. So doing no advertising at all is not the answer right now. And there's two quotes here, one from Coca-Cola, you can read for yourself, or P&G, who P&G, which I'll focus on right now, said actually they spent more on their brands during the crisis and actually saw an uplift in sales as well. So they know investing in recessions is important because people will turn to brands and their benefits, and P&G wants to remind people of that exactly. But there was something else that we saw interestingly happening in the industry at the time of the crisis, and potentially even still going on, is that we saw a lot of the advertising that was put out there represented an overdose of what we called COVID communication. And what we meant by this is probably a lack of creativity being injected into these ads, because we were all focusing on, or many advertisers were focusing on, the similar kind of messages: feeling safe, we're there for you, we've been around for X amount of years. And the problem was that many people remember, even in Chile, close to 70% remembering coronavirus-related advertising, but actually they don't remember the brand at all. And you can see that from the quotes here. And so the advertising was, for the most part, not really helping those brands. And even data